Do you want to bust your sales quota? Do you want to join the ranks of top 1% sellers? The Top 1% Sellers podcast gives you the insights and the tools to help you achieve your sales greatness. The podcast features sales and services professionals, leaders, and experts to give you the edge you're looking for. Here's your host, Ash Sadiq.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Top 1% Sellers Academy webinar series. Our second webinar today is with Jeffrey Hayzlett, who is a primetime television host of C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and also Executive Perspectives on C-Suite TV. He's also a business radio host of All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on CBS On-Demand Radio Network, Play It. He's also a global business celebrity, speaker, best-selling author, and chairman of C-Suite Network, and home of the world's most powerful network of C-Suite leaders. He is a well-traveled public speaker, the author of 2 best-selling business books, The Mirror Test and Running the Gauntlet. His third book, Think Big, Act Bigger, which was released in September 2015, is the most recent book he has published, and we will actually be talking with Jeffrey about this book in particular. He is one of the most compelling figures in business today. I'm very honored and glad to have you, Jeffrey, on the Top 1% Sellers Academy webinars. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for being a part of it. And actually, it's my third bestseller. Think Big, Act Bigger has actually sold more than the first 2 books combined. So it's just been a tremendous success. And we're just right now at the 1-year anniversary of that book. It's hard to believe on my Facebook post, I'm starting to see all these things, memories of the 1 year, and I'm seeing all the launch photos from the book last year. So pretty excited about all the sales and the fact that Think Big, Act Bigger has been such a wonderful, relentless success.
Absolutely. Congratulations. No, I've actually been just doing a lot of reading to help prepare for our conversation today, and very fascinating book. I've pretty much actually finished it, and I'm very glad because our audience of sales professionals would definitely love the thoughts and the key insights that you shared in Think Big, Act Bigger. And what I'd love to do for us as we organize our talk this morning is, in the beginning, let's sort of look at it as almost like 3 chapters. The first one, we're going to take a look at Jeffrey Hayzlett, the chief sales officer of his businesses and companies, and really kind of try to take some of those insights and share them with our audience of sales professionals, men and women working in several industries, and really trying to keep this economy moving for us. And then we'll take a look at your vantage point as a chief marketing officer for Kodak formerly, and also now, in your own businesses. You interface with a lot of sellers. We want to see what those interactions are like. And then we'll end up with a third chapter on how does a sales professional gain access to the C-suite? What are the good ways of doing it? What are the bad ways of doing it? So we'll go ahead and get started with the first look at, in your day-to-day running of your own businesses, would love to see, Jeffrey, the sales professional, how do you go about selling? And as you do so, I'd love for you to kind of, tell the listeners and the viewers, what's good to do, what's not good to do.
Well, I tell you, the biggest thing is right there in the title of my book. It's called The Rewards of Being Relentless. So many people give up on selling. I sell to the C-suite all the time. Now, I'm a former Fortune 100 C-suite officer myself, but I'm constantly selling to other CEOs, CMOs, CFOs. I'm constantly selling to that C-suite. And one of the things you have to really learn, and I work with lots of different people, is to be relentless, which means, look, these are some of the busiest people in the world, so they're not going to get back to you right away. Not always. And they might not always see the value of what you're trying to sell. So you're going to have to stay with it and get it in front of them when they're ready and be receptive for the message, or create some kind of dissidence inside of them that says they need to act right now. And that's one of the things you have to do. So the first thing I would tell you to do is you're going to have to be relentless, and I'm going to wear you down. I'm going to make it happen in terms of that. That's one. The second is, this is one of the things I find to be probably one of the most disheartening things that salespeople do. and that is they don't do their homework. They don't spend the time to look up the things. I mean, look, I have a television show.
Yes.
And it's a show that's been on Bloomberg, #1 business show. We now do it, what's called Over the Top, which means it's all online. It's a digital show. Now, that show is called The C-Suite. I do another show called Executive Perspectives, but people call me or write to me to ask to be on my show. And they say, I want to be on your show as an expert, guest. And I go, like, you freaking idiot. Have you seen the show? Because if you saw the show, I don't have experts who come on the show, you freaking moron. So you didn't do your homework, and you're trying to tell me, now I have another show over here that I might very well have you on, but the C-Suite, no, I'm not going to have you on that because I don't do that show. And so if you'd watched one freaking show, you would have realized, sorry, you put the quarter in, you get to go for the full ride here, Ash.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I've loved to, your talks. You're really, in your face, and you just say it as it is, and I love that. So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and you see people make mistakes. Now, even when I was the CMO of Kodak, I had people who came into my office. Now, the logo had changed 2 years prior to me getting there, but yet they would have the old logo in everything that they would use in the presentation. So, and if you're marketing to a chief marketing officer, what do you think that does to your chances of me wanting to do business with you when you don't even use the right logo for me, especially if you're an agency? So those are the, do your homework and learn to be relentless, And then the third thing I'm going to say is understand the value, the value of what you're selling and the value of what I need and how that relates. And a lot of people make mistakes, Let me give you a prime example, if I may.
Yes.
People would write to me and say, Jeff, I can help you save thousands of dollars, with this thing. Well, what are you kidding me? I run a $17 billion budget. Thousands of dollars is important, but I'm really looking for millions, if not billions, I need to save in order to be more efficient, because that's what's really going to trip the trigger. And and I would write back to the salespeople and say, well, can you do more than thousands? And, they come back and say, yes, we can make that. We can add more zeros, And then I would always ask them, now, okay, great. Now you have my attention. Now tell me the experience that you have in my industry that makes me feel that you can bring forward the solution for it. And typically they can never answer it and would just ignore it. So again, they weren't getting to the value of what I needed. And had they known me or known the industry or spent some more time researching, they would have, pulled that gem out and then offered it back up. And now they've got my attention. It's like saying, hey, I want to come and visit I want to have coffee with you. Come on. I love drinking coffee because Duncan's one of my sponsors, but that's, and I love drinking scotch, by the way, because it was Glenn Fiddick is one of my sponsors too. But, but don't just tell me you want to do that. I don't have time for that. And C-suite executives are extremely busy. And I'm not saying they're more busy than anybody else, but they look, you got a lot of overhead sitting in a room with the C-suite. So, you need to make that time useful. So don't tell me you want to drink coffee. I mean, I love that. Send me a coupon. But I'd more rather what is it you want to do? What do you want to get accomplished? Just tell me that. I get it.
Exactly, and I think that maybe resonates also with what you talk about in terms of the conditions of satisfaction. If you can talk to how that relates in that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things you can ask for yourself as a salesperson are what are your personal conditions of satisfaction, and what conditions of satisfaction are you solving for the potential customer that you're talking to. For myself, I have my own conditions of satisfaction, things that drive me. What are my goals that I want to drive? It's like building wealth for me and my family. It's for learning new things and for having fun. Those are my three. And I want to meet those conditions of satisfaction for things I want to do. Like if people say, well, Jeff, come do this TV show or come do this. No, I don't want to do that because it doesn't get to where I want to go. Yes. And so I ask you what, your own internal conditions of satisfaction are, but what are the conditions of satisfaction for the customer? And if you can get to understanding what their conditions of satisfaction are, what is it they're trying to drive? I'm sitting here in a conference room in one of our conference rooms here in New York City. And I remember having a CEO of a company, and I said to them the other day, what is it you want to drive? He says, well, we want to drive, I said, you want fame or you want fortune? because we were talking about a PR company. I'm chairman of a PR company. And he goes, well, we want fortune. But he kept using all these examples of fame. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't have both. Pick one. Which one's it going to be? Because if you want both, we're going to have to charge you more, which is okay with us. But you said you didn't want to pay for that. You only wanted to pay for this. So again, get back to the real condition of satisfaction. Sometimes you have to ask very probing questions in order to get that. Because if you get to the condition of satisfaction, as I did with the CEO, he said, well, we want fortune. We want to drive more sales. We want to drive real, good margins in the product. I said, well, fabulous. Then let's focus in on those things. He said, well, but I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. Wait. That doesn't relate to being in fortune, having fortune. You really want to be there for fame. And if that's the case, then I need to charge you for that, because we'll go after that too. And so that was a real tough discussion with him in order to get to those conditions of satisfaction. But if you do that, as we just talked about, Ash, you can extract more value back out of the customer, which is real important.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I also know that it looks like embedded in your book, as well as in a lot of what you say, is this whole concept of you have to be hungry. I know you talk about purposeful desperation in one of the chapters, that should really create that hunger for understanding what the customer is looking for, what value they're trying to drive. And I think having that perspective forces you to really leave no stones unturned. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, you get to add a lot more on. So by really understanding the customer, by getting to that point and making them really tell you what's important, and then when they start going off this other thing, we'll say, well, that there's more for that. It's like saying you want all these features in the product, but that next feature, you've got good, you got better, and you got best pricing. Gold, silver, bronze, if you want to say, and you're really wanting to say you want all this, you want to pay me the bronze prices, but you want the silver package. Wait, you can't have that unless you pay the silver price. So by understanding those needs, I learned the path for migration to move them to a bigger deal, and I learned what's of greater value to them. And when I understand the greater value, then I can really start focusing on margins. So I can start building on a business that gives me great margins. And so, and whether you're a marketer, and I'm a marketer, but I'm really a salesperson, a sales pro, and I've ran both, and of course been a CEO. But I'm always about sales, and I'm always about driving great margins. And the better the margins are, the better for your business.
Absolutely. I know that now in your business, there's quite a bit of services that you're selling, especially the PR agency and other parts of the business. And I know, where I come from in high tech, there's a big shift towards services, and a lot of people are having the struggle from moving from sort of the concrete to the invisible, which is services oriented. In your mind, because I know you're doing this on a daily basis, how do you then create that value? Make sure that people look at services from that value perspective.
Well, I always like to describe. It's a great question. I always like to describe things from pain, because if I want to tell you how painful it's going to be if you don't have this service. Okay, I want to describe that, because if if you understand the pain, then you're going to look for a solution. When let's say we're selling software. Yes. We all understand the value of software. We install it, boom. But do you remember how painful it is to install it? Do you remember how painful it is when your people don't use it? Do you remember how painful it is when it goes down and you're going to need some help? Because all those things are going to happen. Well, we don't think of that when we buy it sometimes. So you have to remind them and paint the picture. And that's a delicate balance, because on the one time you're selling the good stuff of the software, but you also want to sell the pain of the things that they want to go through. And then we're here to eliminate the pain, right? And so that's how I tend to focus on it. So I go, you want to describe the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes. Because when you do that, then you're giving a clear picture. And quite frankly, as a sales professional, I'm going to have greater believability from you in understanding that, because as a business CEO, owner, or someone in a decision-making process, I'm a pretty smart guy, or a pretty smart gal. We've been through this before. This isn't our first rodeo, so we tend to understand what those things are.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen once you buy this technology or this product or solution, that you have to make it fit into your organization and end up achieving the outcomes that you're looking for.
I remember years ago when I was selling software in Japan and China and everywhere else, and we had a technology company, and of course I remember sitting down with these executives in this meeting room in Shinjuku, and they were complaining about the bugs in the software. They go, they would say, well, why are there bugs? I said, what are you talking about? It's freaking software. Of course there's bugs in software. Every piece of software has bugs in it. That's the nature of software. And I started telling them, in fact, you know what? Those are features. I should charge you for those. I went on the offensive saying every one of the 110 bugs that we identified, I said, those are features. And I started selling them as features, This crashes so it helps you know how to do the system again. So I was doing all those kinds of things. Anything to get out of it, because I was in big trouble at that point. So
absolutely. And I'd like to now kind of shift gear a little bit. And you've been in many situations where, again, you were on the receiving end of a lot of these sales conversations, and some of them, you sat there wondering, to your point back to the fact that you saw one sales account manager or executive coming in and not using the right logo. What other pitfalls have you seen sales professionals make, especially in front of the C-suite buyers?
There's a couple of them. I will tell you the biggest one I see is that you quit too soon. I truly, look, it's really tough selling to the C-suite. I do not want to minimize it. That it's tough. You have to stalk us. You have to go after us. You have to find us. But to stalk us, you want to be very well prepared. And so it's really around understanding the personality types. The other one I'll mention is to shut up. Sometimes I think it's important for you to shut up when you have the sale. I've seen deals lost because you keep talking.
They talk themselves out of a deal.
Exactly. You had me alone. Now you're irritating. I'm not interested. But so match the personality types. Look, I have a very distinct personality types. If we look at the 4 basic personality types. I'm a driver, so I have two modes of operation. I either want to seduce you and win you over, or I want to kill you. I mean, and I'm saying that in a very nice in terms, but that's the way drivers. You walk into my office, you look on the wall. What do you see? You see dead animals, things I've killed, trophies, things like that. That's what you see, and that's what a driver is like. So to sell to me and is a different way of a different approach. So you want to be very matter of fact. You want to be very, very quick as well. And then you want to always have a 2 to 3 option close. Now, why would you want a 2 to 3 option close? Because I just got through telling you, I either want to win you over or kill you. So if you give me one solution and you say, here's the proposal, and it's one option, well, what's my other option is no.
Yeah.
And almost 90% of the time they'll choose no. So what you always want to do is give them a choice, because the executives that are direct, driver personalities, they like to choose and pick and decide the fate of those things. And so you want to be able to do that, and you always want to put it in writing with them, because they're very, very formal. But I've seen people who've come in who are analytics, and they use a summary close, or they use a trial close. You don't use a trial close on a driver, because I'll take that as a challenge. I know what you're doing. When you come over to me and say, if you were to buy that printing or that couch or that chair, where would you put it? Well, that's a trial close. Well, I'll tell you where I'll put it. I'm going to shove it where the sun doesn't shine. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. So those are the things you typically see. So you want to be able to understand the real, 4 basic personality types: the driver, amiable, analytical, and expressives. Yes. And you want to be able to know how to sell them. What closes would you like to use? And a lot of people think you just wing this stuff, and man, you don't wing it. And the best salespeople in the world I know take the time to learn, like you're doing right now. You take the time to analyze. You take the time to do your homework. Yes. Where when people see you do it, they think, oh my gosh, this person, it's so easy, so natural. You know why it's natural? Because they've been practicing. You know why it's natural? It's because they've been studying. You know why it's natural? Because they've been learning. And so, and it's not easy. And in fact, in my book, Think Big, Act Bigger, I talk about it's hard. You know why it's called hard? Because it's freaking hard. Okay. And that's the way it is. And I think that's important for people to be able to understand. So some of the worst mistakes I have seen are caused by not being prepared, being stupid, not knowing your stuff. And that's the ones I give you lots of examples where people have done it. I've watched them, I've seen it,
Yes.
Just blow things.
Absolutely. And I'd love to go to the whole discussion you had around cadence in an organization. I think if we look at a sales professional, man or woman, who's got a sales team, they work for a big organization, whether it's IBM, Cisco, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and they're trying to go out, build a team around them, and go and hunt within a particular named account or even to acquire new customers. As you think about your own sales activities, how do you make sure that there's almost like a sales cadence or a sales team cadence, right? How would you advise a sales professional to build one up and maybe shield it from what's going on around them?
Well, and that's a good point. And then have it supported in a way that meets the cadence so they can continue to drive so the river doesn't dry up on them. That's an important piece. And so we talk about cadence, and I talk about this in the book. The cadence is your speed, the way in which you operate. It's almost like an operating philosophy. But when you walk in any business, or if you watch television, I use that as an example. When you watch Downton Abbey, there's a certain cadence that's very slow and formal.
Yes.
And a mode of operation. Yeah, but when you watch, an old show like ER or some cop show or something, it's boom, 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 boom in your face. Well, what is the cadence of your own organization? Sometimes they don't match the company organization, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to have to build in the buffers and build in the support team to meet the cadence of the team, because that cadence of your team usually has to match the cadence of the company you're selling to as well.
That's a good point.
Or to drive it, and I always like to be a little bit faster than the companies I'm selling to.
Yes.
So I can stay on top of it. I look better. I look faster. We look, like we have our stuff together. So it's real important that you really define that and understand what that is, because, if you don't have that, then it develops based on your lowest common denominator.
Yes.
So if you're not driving those things, you can only go as fast as the slowest member of your teams, right?
Exactly.
So if you're gonna, like you asked a great example, typically your sales team's gonna have to pull away from the rest of the team, have the support mechanisms inside to drive a faster cadence to the rest of the company, or you're gonna be waiting for someone to give you the contract.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that requires you to do different things. I got a partner in a major media company, which will not be named. And a lot of times they don't move fast enough with my sales team selling my podcast or selling the stuff that I'm doing. So what we have to do is we have to operate a little differently than the CBS team does. And we do it and we handle it. And then we made a deal with CBS, you just bill us and do those things because we can move faster than they can move.
Package it up.
Yeah. And they still get what they want, and we still get what we want, right? They still get money, and we still get money. We just get it faster, exactly. and hopefully bigger than the other checks that we normally get.
That's beautiful. And I can definitely see a lot of these account managers having to have these conversations, sort of building that cadence up and more or less nurturing it and communicating why it's important.
Yeah. And typically a leader will set the pace for that, right? So, if your leader's not also practicing that, you're going to fall back to a slower cadence and your team will be frustrated and they can't keep, so as a leader, if you're leading that team, you want to keep that in mind. I always try to stay ahead of all my team. So they come in at 8, I come in at 7:45. They come in at 7:45, I come in at 7:30. They send me 10 emails, I send them 20. I take everything as a competition. So that and I want them to know you try, please try to beat me. I love it, but you'll never do it because that's the leader I should be. Now I nurture them and bring them along and I push them and everything. But I think that's if you're going to be the sales leader, as many of you are watching this, you want to be that person who lives it, drinks it, drink the Kool-Aid. And drink, make your own Kool-Aid and then drink it by the gallonful. Because if you can do that, then people start to see that. And I talk about in my book. I talk about even cleaning bathrooms. This weekend I was in an LPGA tournament with the CEO of a major company, and he owns a big fast food chain, huge. And as we're driving around the cart, and he's the sponsor of this national tournament, he's getting out of the cart to pick up paper that was on the ground.
Wow.
Okay, because he's sponsoring, he wants it reflective, and I thought, man, I love to see that because he's walking his talk. He's
Absolutely, leading by example. Absolutely.
Yep.
You talk also about the concept of re-envisioning the pond. I'm quoting from the book, and also creating an enemy. And I wonder, does Jeffrey Hayzlett do that in his sales? Do you always have an enemy in mind?
Yeah, the enemy could be the problem we're trying to solve.
Yes.
Right. So the enemy could be my competitor. The enemy could be me.
Yes.
But in terms of my complacency or whatever it might be sometimes, because look, I got a stack of proposals sitting on my desk right now, and I'm in the middle of slowing all this stuff down. So I had to turn to my team and say, you've got to get me out of the middle. I'm stopping you guys from making millions because these things are sitting on my desk. You need to crush me, kill me, get me out of the way of you making this money, because I want that money too. It's like, I tell my team, I said, I was talking about corporate said this and corporate said that. And they said, well, you're corporate. I said, I know, I hate the man, but you need to do some of that, because I think it creates a tension, and creating tension in the system, either from yourself or from others, is a good thing to have. And so I give permission to my team to challenge me, push me, I'm constantly being pulled for time and this and this and this and this. Like today I'm supposed to be doing voiceovers, and of course I just blow it off because I can't stand to sit in a sound booth and just read shit. Right. And so, but I get paid for that, And I told the team, you gotta force me, you gotta grab me, drag me in there, and lock me in until I beat on the door. Yeah. So I slide the tape, or the sound disc underneath the under the door, and then it's finished. Then you can let me out. So it's okay. So, but I think if you have an enemy, you have something to go for, and you have something to really pinpoint. And and my point, what I made in the book as well, Ash, was where sometimes I'll have companies who are pitching me, and they say, well, we're the only ones that do that. Well, if you're the only ones that do this, if you're the only ones that sell this, then you're not really the best, right? You're just the only one. Yeah. I'd rather have you be the best, That's why I think it's good to have that enemy. Yeah.
Absolutely. If I look at your history, just given the amount of creativity and innovation in terms of the businesses that you've been into, there's definitely a lot of re-envisioning the pond that you yourself do. And I think if you think of a sales professional, also when you're working on your own deals, how is that thought process in action? And then how do you tell another sales professional to sort of adopt that? Because it would enlarge the deal size, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Well, so a couple of things. I always want to go into most things in life, everything, with I don't know what I don't know.
Yes.
Now, I go in having been there before. Look, I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career. So when I'm buying a business, doing the business, or doing this or doing that, I kind of have a sense for this is the same old stuff, right? I mean, there's not much that's new. But if I do that, then I get lazy. If I do that, I make huge mistakes, and I leave money on the table. If I do this thinking this is the same deal as the deal I just did, and didn't ask the other question, or didn't listen, or didn't pay attention, or didn't look around to my surroundings and see what kind of cars they're driving, what they're doing, what kind of pennies they got, or does she send her son to private school? Those are telltale signs that I can have, and one time I had a guy who was trying to sell me his business, and I'm looking at the books, and there's no profit, but yet he's got a brand new Mercedes outside. And so he was then tell me, well, I don't report everything. Well, if you don't report everything, I don't pay for everything. Yes. So, but that was my observation was, wait, that didn't mesh. Yes. So if you don't question yourself, then, if you don't go into some state of, I'm not aware of what I'm aware of, yes, then you treat things in the same old way. And that's not good. It's not good for your marriage. Right? Yes. It's not good to not reinvent things. So I try to look at that. And so what I always try to do is say, okay, yeah, this is a phone. Well, but it's more than a phone. It's, it's this, it's this, it's this. It's, and we can talk about all the features and functionality, but no. This is the most personal device there is in the world.
Yes.
I know where my phone is more than I know where my children are. Okay. Think about that. If you lost your phone and your kids at the mall at the same time, which one would you go looking for first? Okay. So therefore, this thing is not just a communications device. It's a valuable personal item that I identify with because it has my life. So what's that mean? So again, if that's what I mean. So when you look at redefining the pond, well, we have this pond, but what kind of pond? Could it be a bigger pond? Should we drain the pond and put it into a river and reroute the river? And that's the things you want to think of. And I'm not saying, drive change for change's sake, because no one gets in a car and locks in the steering wheel or locks in the brake. I'm talking about we make adjustments. And so be open to making adjustments, to taking a new route, a new way, a new speed. And if you do that, you get some great valuable things.
Absolutely, because it immediately made me think about, again, when I think of Cisco, when I think of the partner organizations that work with Cisco, as a sales account manager going to a customer, if he only or she only thinks of Cisco, that's not re-envisioning the pond, because typically the solution is going to involve several other pieces. And I think that way you serve the customer better, and then you also bring a lot of other players with the solution.
Yeah, great example. Use Cisco as a good example. I'm going to do it. So John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, is a good friend as well. And by the way, his father was a doctor in West Virginia. I was born in West Virginia. His father was the doctor that brought me into this world.
Oh my goodness.
And which we didn't know until like 40 years later. And he said, my dad was a doctor, just as a side note. And we were at a major conference somewhere, and he goes, my dad was a doctor in West Virginia. I go, well, I was, because we're both from the same state. Yeah. And anyway, lo and behold, his father was the first person ever to touch my ass. Okay, I just want to point that out. But I will tell you, Michael Dell from Dell Computer one day, Cisco bought a company called Flip, which was a video camera, a small video camera company. They bought for like $500 to $800 million, and Michael and I were Facebook friends. And so Michael wrote to me on Facebook and said, why did they buy Flip? Yes. He wanted to know, what he missed. So I got a private message from Michael Dell. This was many years ago.
Yes.
And he writes, and I got to thinking about, well, it wasn't finance. So here's why they were buying Flip. If you think of it, they're buying, why are they getting the consumer electronics thing? No. Yes. What does Cisco make? Cisco primarily makes routers.
Yes.
Okay? And you buy a router, you typically keep that router until it frickin' dies. And probably you're going to die before the router will die.
Correct.
So the only way you can get someone to upgrade the router is to push more data through the router so that the router becomes the constriction point, and you need a bigger router. Absolutely. Right? Exactly. All right. So what are video files? Huge amounts of data.
Yes. So
they were trying to push more and more data so that companies would want to do this video stuff, video conferencing, if you remember. They would want to do all, personal video devices that you're using at work, capture more of this that you see. And therefore, they were creating a business development arm and a way in which to increase more demand for the routers. Absolutely. That's what I said to Michael. I said, this is the only thing I can see is that way. But if I looked at it just as a consumer play, I would have said that was the stupidest buy that Cisco ever made. And I don't think it was the smartest buy still today, because the Flip became a flop. But anyway, but again, you have to look at it beyond what is just right there.
Absolutely.
So that's the pond. Again, that's the analogy. Is it really just a pond? Is it really just a phone?
It's a much more strategic move than just a simple purchase. No, that's fantastic. Let's definitely then kind of shift over to bringing you interact with the C-suite. You were in the Fortune 100 yourself, and you, based on your C-suite TV program and conferences, you're interfacing with executives all the time. And I think sellers are always interested to learn what makes a CXO tick. And you talked about the personality types. I want us to maybe delve deeper into how do executives like to make decisions? Are they typically making the decision in that room where they are, or are they typically depending on a much larger team to help them make the decision? Especially,
great question.
Yeah.
There are some executives who, it is interesting. I did an interview with Inc. Magazine this morning with someone about something along the same lines.
Yes.
So typically, there are some execs who just make decisions. Boom, we're going to go do it. Okay, that's a very small percentage. I mean, if we're looking on the chart, they're way over here. They're right, that little tiny bubble way up here. Most executives are down in this bubble, and what you got to do is really find the ones in the sweet spots, right? And so what happens with most executives, they can't or aren't empowered fully to make decisions. So that's one. So they have to bring in other people. So you need to find out who are the influencers and who are the other decision makers that part of that. But one of the other things for most executives is they can only push so much without getting the rest of the team to buy in. So they're going to go and look for others to help them. Yes. And so you want to help them educate the other ones on what to make a great decision is and why that's a great decision. Yes. And they don't want to rock the boat as much. So they're going to go for safer decisions. That's why, no CMO ever lost his job by buying television.
Yes.
Okay? It was a safe bet. No CEO ever lost his or her job by buying IBM, right? Yeah. Because it was a safe bet. So what you want to be able to do is show them how this is a safe and good bet, and yet gets what they want to have accomplished. And so to do that, you've got to present it in a way that it's in their speak, their language, and so forth. So everybody just looks around and pretty says, well, why aren't we doing this?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But if you don't have that buy-in from their teams, you understand they'll sabotage them. They'll put knives in their back. It's not, I know it is human nature, but it's also corporate nature where you have different groups fighting and different groups, saying, well, that's my area, not your area. And you get some of that crap going on, which is not good, but that's just the nature of the way it works. So the less that you have of that, the better it is.
Absolutely, because you want to make sure it gets implemented and adopted in the business versus it is on the shelf and they don't do anything with it,
Yep. So you want it to be a bit of a stretch in terms of where it needs to go, but still safe enough to where nobody has a problem with it.
Yeah, that's terrific, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to one of the points you make in the book about being a little pig-headed, don't settle, be irrational. And I want to talk to our sales professionals on what that means in your mind.
Yeah, so a lot of people say, well, I'm pig-headed. Well, that's a bad thing. No, it's a great thing. It means that I'm going to stand for something, and you're going to stand for something, and that means the best, right? I had an executive who got up in one of my television shows, and I'm there filming him, and this is the CEO of Life Technologies, which is a $4 billion company sold to Thermo Fisher for about $13 billion. Yes. And this was Greg Lucier. Greg was a former executive inside of GE Healthcare as well. Just a great guy. I mean, everything this guy has ever touched turns to not gold, but platinum. He's really done a good job. And so he was speaking to a Harvard group of alumni, Harvard MBA alumni in San Diego. So I went there and filmed him. It's part of what we call B-roll, where I'm sitting there listening, and they're getting shots of me, shots of him, that we can overload with my voiceover. Yes. And so he got up and he said, he was talking about what MBAs and what leaders need to do. And he says, leaders need to be irrational. I went, what? He's got to be nuts. You can't be irrational. He's a publicly traded company and a scientific company. It's got to be exact, and he's telling them to sit here and be irrational. Oh my gosh, there's no way. Right? And I circled it. I thought, I'm going to drill him. And then he said, here's what happens. He says, here's where our company is on the chart. And we want to go here. But what I do is I tell them, we got to go over here, way up here. Yes. And everybody thinks I'm freaking nuts or crazy, or you think I'm nuts and crazy because I'm saying we got to go here. Well, the reason is I got to do that in order to drag everybody to get them to here.
Closer to where you want to go.
Yeah. And so it's like, me telling my team when they say, oh, it's cold in the office, I'll say, hey, work harder, So, you work harder. If you work more, you'll warm up. It's that kind of, again, the cadence, the strategy about saying that. But how many times have you in your sales history, you shipped something you shouldn't have shipped? You did something that the team did, and you go, oh, I hope they don't see that.
Yeah.
And so being pig-headed is saying, no, stop.
Yes.
We said we were going to deliver this. This is what we're delivering. And we're going to deliver it in this quality, in this format, this price, this quality, with this speed, whatever it is.
Exactly.
And you have to say, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in rooms where we're about to ship something, and one of the employees says, this is bad, this isn't good. And sometimes I'd almost say, we'll just ship it anyway.
Yeah.
And then I would say, no, you have to live in the values. And if your values say this is what it is, then I had to be pig-headed and say, stop it, stop.
Yes.
We're going to fail. We're going to fail if we send it, and we're going to fail if we don't send it. But I'd rather fail and not send it and be right and earn the trust of the customer. So again, that's what I'm talking about, being pig-headed. And it's important for you to be very pig-headed, not settling.
Thank you. I definitely agree with you on that. And when I was, reading the piece about steamrolling objections and steamrolling any obstacles in the way, just by watching and listening to you, I'm figuring you're doing this on a daily basis yourself, just by
every day.
Your force of character, right?
Yep.
If you can talk to the attributes then that maybe are in Jeffrey and then they should be in others, especially if they are sales professionals, what's sort of driving that ability to just keep going no matter what?
Well, winning. I mean, and doing what I want to do. So if my conditions of satisfaction are build wealth, right, and for my family, and to learn new things and have fun, well, those are the things that drive me. So let's say I'm selling to you and you say no. Okay. Well, eventually you're going to, so I'm going to keep coming back, So I'm going to win. I'm going to win you over one way or the other, So that's my philosophy is, just a matter of that. It's like in my first book, The Mirror Test, I talked about one time someone caught me in the middle of a phone conversation and the person said no. And I said, hey, well, listen, I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. I'd like to check back in with you at some later time. And I hung up and I went, yeah. And they went, Jeff, what are you talking about? You just got to know. Someone just told you no, and they're not going to buy from you. I said, yeah, I know. Wasn't that wonderful? And they go, what are you talking about? I said, well, it takes 10 no's to get a yes. And that was my 10th one. My next call is going to be a yes. On average, I knew that to be the case. And so that's about that relentlessness of being able to drive it. I mean, a great example is my son. My son works for me, and he handles the brand of me. So he handles the TV, the radio, the books, and all the stuff that's around us because it's our name. Yes. And I want to make sure I got, somebody that's got that same name who's, watching out, kind of like Trump does with his family too. Yes, and exactly. And my son does that. And years ago, he was one of the top salespeople in Northwestern Mutual. He went through their internship program, and which is a great, great program, by the way. If anyone that's ever wants to learn how to really sell and do something, Northwestern Mutual has a great program for it. Yes. And he was one of the top 10 in the country.
That's awesome.
And I said, how is it you make more phone calls than anybody else? He goes, Dad, I don't hang up the phone. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, everybody else in the office, when they're done with the phone, they hang it up. I never hang it. I never hang it up. I just click. Or I wear a headset. I just click. Exactly. I never hang up the phone. And I went, wow, that's saying I'm going to be relentless in what I do and how I do it. And I'm going to overcome obstacles so I can be faster with it. I thought that was great.
That's wonderful, Jeffrey. This has been fantastic conversation. I want to go more, but I want to be very conscious of your time. And
thanks.
So thank you so much for joining me. I'd like to take just a few minutes here and show the audience a few more of our slides. Just to remind them that this is actually Jeffrey's participating with us in an amazing lineup of experts that are coming in to participate in the Top 1% Sellers Academy. In the next few months, we'll have Ty Bennett, Louis Sheff, Peter Myers, and I know that just yesterday, actually, Jim Cathcart has also agreed to join us in this series, and also Mike Weinberg, fantastic bestsellers and experts in the sales profession, and definitely Jeffrey is one of the the trailblazers here in that lineup, and I thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Well, you got some great talent there. I know many of the people that you've just mentioned. Jim Cathcart, certainly, he's a fellow Speaker Hall of Fame as well with myself. He and I, and oh gosh, who else? Art Linkletter, Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar, Ronald Reagan. That to just name a few of those. Some great dignitaries that Jim and I happen to share. One, we've shared the stage with many of those people, and then two, just to be a part of the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, that's just amazing. I'm very honored to have you and have these people. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And I definitely want to encourage everybody watching us and people who are going to be watching the replays to visit thinkbigtour.com and learn more about Jeffrey's Think Big, Act Bigger book and a lot of other activities that are happening around it. And also the c-suitenetwork.com, amazing number of episodes of conversations with C-suite executives. Jeffrey's an amazing interviewer. I've seen some of these episodes, and the talent that he brings and the interactions and the conversations that he has, very, very educational, especially for sales professionals, to really understand what that audience thinks about, cares about, and has top of mind. So definitely you want to check these two websites out, and then definitely stay tuned for the messages you'll be receiving from us, the webinars that are coming up in this series, and some valuable content that you see us offering as well through the communication that we'll be sending you. And then eventually a lot of this content will be on the Top 1% Sellers Academy membership website, which will have a whole lot more in terms of access to coaches, listening to Jeffrey and other people in these webinars, and then also some Hall of Fame sellers that we are interviewing as well. Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me be a part of it and coming out and thinking big today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have a great afternoon.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Top 1% Sellers podcast. Give us your suggestions and guest recommendations by emailing us at ash@connectwithash.com. Thank you also for sharing this podcast with your colleagues and social media contacts. To connect with us on LinkedIn, please send a connect request to ash@connectwithash.com. See you at our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.